Lindsay? Hey, have you seen my Tom Servo plush anywhere? I need him for my review. It's very important that he just sits there by me and does nothing. Oh well. I suppose I'm gonna have to do the review for Avengers: The Age of Ultron without him. I guess so. I'll have to just plug away, I suppose. As always, you can find my products. Red Knight, the first trade paperback, is available on my Create Space. I'll put the link below. I guess I'll get going here. This is going to be some minor spoilers, as I'm going to try and talk freely about the film. Because there's some things I really can't talk about really too much. I'll do my best to avoid major things. But be forewarned, you probably should watch the movie before you watch this review. With that said, Joss Whedon's Avengers: The Age of Ultron has come out, and it's a great little triumph. It's another great film in the Marvel Cinematic franchise. And let's see, it stars the usual gang of guys, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, Samuel Jackson, and this time around we have Aaron Taylor Johnson as Quicksilver, Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch, and James Spader as the voice of Ultron. And we also have some other recognizable faces from the other Marvel films, which is really cool. Now that we've been making so many of these, with the Avengers films, we can actually have some of these guys pop up, like the Falcon and War Machine. I'm glad they've gone back to the name War Machine rather than Iron Patriot. But let's see, where do we go from here? Minor explanation of the plot. While hunting down Loki's scepter that's been capped by Baron von Strucker of Hydra, they invade, they capture the scepter, and everything's looking like, hey, they're wrapping some loose ends up from their previous film. And there's some things that Tony Stark discovers while he's there that kind of leads him on to this idea of using his robots in a new way, of adding AI to them. Therefore creating his super secret cool Ultron project. Now this is of course a departure from the comic books where Hank Pym accidentally created Ultron. But to be honest, this actually does make more sense. This is one of those retcon changes that I think actually makes better sense than it does in the comics. Because back in the 60s or 70s when that was created, comic books basically looked at science as, science is science. If you know how to shrink things, you know robotics. So pretty much the same stuff. That's actually not true, from what I've discovered about science. There's quite a few different things in science that you can be aware of and not be aware of other things. Like, did you know a podiatrist cannot do brain surgery? I didn't know that either until recently. But he and Banner get working on the project while they're trying to hurry up because Thor gave him a couple days to work on it before he returns the scepter to Asgard. While this is happening, Ultron wakes up and within instant decides he needs to chart this new course for humanity, his way, and his scary, evil way. So, he's not... It's definitely not nurture, it's more nature. He's just evil. And he apparently seems to take out Jarvis instantly, but that's not what we discover later on. That means he starts kind of like, whipping up his own army. He recruits Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, who are working with Baron Stryker. And then off we go. Let's see, the team is broken up during their battles with Ultron and the twins. And we get to see some variant sides of the characters and how their lives as superheroes, assassins, spies, super soldiers, what have you, superheroes, have kind of invaded their home lives, and we get to see that in several characters in this film, and their minor regrets and things they've had to been able to kind of look past, and it's interesting to see how each character kind of deals with that. And actually, it's not until after I saw the film, it's very obvious with one of the characters, or two of the characters, but you actually kind of see it pop up in several of the leads in this film. And what's interesting is it's not, they all deal with it differently, and they all have their own kind of backstories of what has happened to them, what has caused them to sacrifice, and what has been able to allow them to live in a life that they're trying to achieve. I think this is all done very seamlessly, and it doesn't slow down the pace at all of the film, which I think is really good, because when you get into this kind of territory, you can get into Attack of the Clones kind of territory, where the whole movie just stops so you can do this kind of character stuff, and I think I think Whedon does that very well. Of course, the performances are all excellent in this film. I mean, of course, the returning actors don't seem to be tiring at all of the parts. They all seem just as energetic and as excited as before. I forgot up until like a few minutes ago, Scarlett Johansson was actually pregnant during this film, and I didn't even think about that while this movie was going on. She wasn't waddling behind suitcases at any point in this movie. So I completely forgot about that aspect, which I think is really good. I'm trying to think. There are some things, I suppose, I'll try not to talk about major spoilers in this video. But when we get to the big plot of what Ultron is trying to do, I think it comes very naturally within the film. And at the same time, it kind of surprised me. It's like, oh, it's been kind of staring me in the face this whole time. He's talking about meteors. And he decides to make one of his own. And boy, what a great action piece. I thought it wisely raises the bar from the first Avengers film without trying to copy anything. At least from what I've been thinking right now from the film, since seeing it a few hours ago, I can't recall this film trying to repeat anything from the previous film. And at the same time, not just being the same thing, but just making it bigger and dumber. It doesn't make that mistake either. And in some aspects, some of the at least the last action piece is bigger, but it is smarter, or at least as smart as the previous one. It's not dumb. So I was very impressed by this film. James Spader, I think, is an interesting choice. He doesn't sound and act like a typical evil robot AI, which is usually cold and distant and often British. But he has an interesting, dark, creepy flair to him. He's almost like a devil in some aspects of this film, the way he's written and the way he behaves. And he definitely has his own vibe and personality. And without seeming like it's a human character in a robot cartoon suit. It definitely does come across as like a newborn robotic AI that is just filled with all this piss and vinegar and attitude, and kind of contempt for humanity, which is interesting because he has a lot of human behavior, but he obviously doesn't think about that. And get to the Vision, who appears in the film. Without spoiling too much about his creation, first off, his look is beautiful. He looks enough like the character in the comics. I think his creation actually surprised me a little bit. I expected it to go one way, and it actually comes up in a different way. Also, that character, he is not exactly totally 100% Jarvis, but he is part of Jarvis is part of him, which is interesting because they do talk a little bit about evolution sometimes in this, and I suppose you can chalk it up to that. And yeah, Ultron is still kind of his father, where the Avengers almost is his mother in a way. It's interesting now that I think about it. There is that kind of thread in this film of generations and having children, and some of them lose the opportunity to have children, some of them do, and what it means to have children, and the idea of being replaced and move on. I think there's some interesting things going on in this super fun action fest, and of course, let's see, anything I'm missing here? And there's a couple of nifty throwaways for potential future films. There's not a last scene after the very credits, but there is a cool scene right after the film. That's enough of a stinger for me, anyway. Well, I think that's it. This is a great film. I highly recommend it. 5 Ram chips. What are you doing sitting here watching this? Go watch the movie. It's fantastic. So, with that said, push the button, Lindsay. Push the button, Lindsay. Oh, the robot! Oh my god!